Picture this, March 15th, 44 BC. Julius Caesar walks into the Roman Senate. A soothsayer already told him to beware this day. His wife, Calpurnia, literally had a nightmare about him dying in her arms. The priests checked the omens. Arena found an animal with no heart. Every single sign pointing to danger. And Caesar laughs it off, dismisses all of it, says he's not afraid. Within minutes, 23 senators stab him, 23 wounds. And his last words, as he's bleeding out at the feet of Pompey's statue, according to legend, "Et tu, Brute?" And you, Brutus? The ultimate cancer betrayal wound. But here's what gets me. This wasn't just bad luck. When you look at his chart, the cancer placement explains literally everything. The refusal to show vulnerability, Cancer's defensive pride, the shock that someone he loved would betray him, classic Cancer blind spot. And wait till you hear about the pattern that showed up his entire life. The one where his emotional need for control made him untouchable until it didn't. There's a dynamic that predicted exactly who would turn on him. And the way he built his legacy? Pure Cancer obsession with being remembered forever. Okay, so before we get into this, if you're obsessed with understanding historical figures through astrology, hit subscribe. And listen, I want to know, do you think Caesar's Cancer ambition made him a strategic genius or just made him so controlling he couldn't see the danger? Drop your take in the comments, because by the end of this, you're going to see how that question literally determined his fate. So, Julius Caesar, born July 13th, 100 BC. Cancer sun, and we don't have his birth time, so no moon or rising, but honestly, his sun sign alone explains so much, it's kind of scary. Cancer is a cardinal water sign. Cardinal means initiator, leader, the one who starts things. Water means emotional, intuitive, deeply feeling. Put those together and you get someone who leads through emotional intelligence but also needs to control everything to feel secure. Ruled by the moon, which means moody, protective, and obsessed with legacy and family lineage. Here's the thing about Cancers most people don't get. Everyone thinks they're just soft and nurturing. Wrong. That's the evolved Cancer. Unevolved Cancer, manipulative, defensive, will smile at you while plotting your downfall. They have this hard shell protecting all that sensitivity. And if you crack that shell, they will never forget it. Ever. Caesar embodied both sides. He could be warm and generous and funny until you crossed him. Then suddenly you're getting crucified. Literally. Keep that duality in mind. It's going to show up in the worst possible way. Caesar was born into the Julian family, patrician class, and get this, they claimed to be descended from Venus and Aeneas, the founder of Rome. Total Cancer move. Cancers are obsessed with lineage and ancestry. They need to connect themselves to something bigger, something that will outlast them. His family wasn't super wealthy, but they had that bloodline status. And for a Cancer, that means everything. His father died when Caesar was 16. He became head of the family overnight, responsible for his mother Aurelia and his sister Julia. Classic Cancer scenario. Suddenly you're the protector, the provider, carrying everyone's emotional weight. And that responsibility, it shapes everything that comes next. At 17, he married Cornelia. Political alliance, but also Cancer craves emotional security through partnership. They need someone in their corner. Then things got dangerous. Sulla, the dictator at the time, was eliminating anyone connected to Marius, who was Caesar's uncle. Sulla literally ordered Caesar to divorce Cornelia. And Caesar refused. Think about this for a second. He's 17 years old. The most powerful man in Rome is telling him to end his marriage or face death, and this teenager says no. This is the first glimpse of that Cancer trait that will define his entire life. That fierce, stubborn loyalty. Cancers are ridiculously loyal once they attach to someone. They'll risk everything for the people they love. Sulla stripped him of his inheritance and Caesar had to flee Rome. But here's where you see the Cancer survival instincts kick in. He joined the military, earned the civic crown for bravery at the siege of Mytilene. Patient, strategic, waiting for his moment. When Sulla died, Caesar came back to Rome and started building his political career. Now at 25, something absolutely wild happened that reveals the darkest side of Cancer pride. This story, It's going to show you exactly who Caesar really was. He's sailing to Rhodes to study oratory, and Cilician pirates capture him, hold him for ransom. The pirates set the price at 20 talents of silver, and Caesar laughs at them, says they clearly don't know who they captured, demands they raise it to 50 talents. I mean, the audacity, the pure Cancer ego. He's their hostage, and he's insulted they didn't value him highly enough. For 38 days, he's held captive on this island. And instead of acting like a prisoner, he acts like he's in charge. Picture this scene. Caesar reading them his poetry and speeches, getting genuinely angry if they don't appreciate his work, ordering them to be quiet when he wants to sleep, joining their exercises but treating them like subordinates. And the whole time, he's smiling and telling them, "When I get out, I'm gonna crucify every single one of you." They thought it was a joke. Classic Cancer charm mixed with that vengeful undercurrent they don't show till it's too late. His ransom gets paid, he's released, and immediately, he raises a naval force, hunts down those pirates, captures them, and has them all crucified, just like he promised. Though he did cut their throats first to lessen their suffering, because Cancer, even in revenge, there's that protective, merciful streak. Remember this pattern: the smile, the promise of revenge, the follow-through. That same smile shows up in the Roman Senate 20 years later. But next time, he's not the one doing the killing, so he's back in Rome building his reputation, climbing the political ladder. At 40 years old, he becomes consul. Highest position in the Republic, but 1 year of power isn't enough for a Cancer. They need permanent security. That cardinal energy doesn't know when to stop. He forms the first triumvirate with Pompey and Crassus. And here's what nobody tells you about this alliance. It wasn't just political strategy. For Cancer, this is emotional architecture. Build alliances, create a protective network. Surround yourself with powerful people who owe you loyalty. Don't go it alone. His emotional intelligence made him incredible at reading people, knowing who to befriend, who to manipulate, who to trust, or who he thought he could trust. Keep Pompey's name in mind, he's going to matter. Then from 58 to 50 BC, he conquers Gaul, modern-day France and Belgium. And his military genius here? Pure Cancer energy channeled into warfare. Picture the Roman Forum, packed, sweaty, everyone shouting about barbarian threats at the borders, and Caesar's working the crowd like he can feel exactly what they need to hear. Protection, security, a strong leader who will defend the homeland. Cancers are protective. And Caesar framed this entire campaign as defending Rome's borders, protecting the homeland. But it's also that cardinal ambition. He needed the glory, the wealth, the loyal army that would follow him anywhere. Here's where it gets psychological. He's writing The Gallic Wars by candlelight in his tent. Blood still on his armor from the day's battle. And he's already thinking about how Rome will read this 2,000 years later. Cancers are obsessed with how they'll be remembered. They need to curate their legacy while they're still alive. They can't just achieve greatness, they need to control the narrative of their greatness. His soldiers loved him, because Cancer, when they're your leader, makes you feel protected and valued. He shared in their hardships, remembered their names, rewarded their loyalty, built that deep emotional bond. This is Cancer at their best, creating genuine devotion through emotional connection. But here's what that really cost him psychologically. Every bond he creates, every person who swears loyalty to him, he starts to believe he's untouchable, that love equals protection, that if people are devoted to you, they'd never hurt you. Fatal assumption. Watch what happens. Then 49 BC. The Senate, threatened by his growing power, orders him to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Give up everything he built, all that security he spent a decade creating, gone. And Caesar faces this moment at the Rubicon River, crossed with his army, which means civil war, treason, no going back, or surrender everything. Think about what's going through his mind. He's 50 years old. He's conquered Gaul. He's built an army that would die for him. He's achieved glory beyond most Romans' wildest dreams. The smart play? Maybe it's accepting victory and going home, living to old age, enjoying his accomplishments. But that's not how Cancer works. Once they're emotionally committed, once they've decided this is their path, they commit completely. No half measures, no retreat. He crosses, says, Alea iacta est. The die is cast, and there it is. That same pattern from when he refused to divorce Cornelia. That same pattern from the pirates. Once Cancer decides, they're all in. Consequences don't matter. Logic doesn't matter. The emotional conviction is everything. Civil war with Pompey. And this one hurt Caesar. Pompey was his ally. His daughter Julia had been married to Pompey, creating a family bond. Remember the first triumvirate, that protective network Caesar built? Now it's turning on itself. When Cancers are betrayed by someone they trusted, someone they considered family, it cuts deeper than anything. They never fully recover from it. But they'll still smile, still act gracious, still play the political game. While inside, they're bleeding out from that emotional wound. He defeats Pompey, becomes dictator, and now watch how his need for control starts escalating. 48 BC, Egypt, now Cleopatra. This is where Caesar made the move that would scandalize all of Rome and show you exactly how Cancer loves when they're not thinking strategically anymore. He's 52, she's 21. She gets herself smuggled into his quarters rolled up in carpet or bedding. Sources disagree, but the boldness is what matters. And Caesar? Completely captivated, not just by her looks, but by her mind. She spoke 9 languages, could debate philosophy and politics for hours. Here's what's wild about this relationship. Caesar puts up a golden statue of Cleopatra in the Temple of Venus in Rome. Venus, the goddess of love, his divine ancestor. Think about what he's announcing to all of Rome. This Egyptian queen isn't just his mistress, she's his goddess. He's connecting her to his bloodline mythology. The Romans hated it. Cicero wrote, "I hate the queen" in his letters, scandal everywhere, and Caesar didn't care. When Cancer loves someone, when they emotionally attach, they'll defend that person against everyone. Logic doesn't matter, public opinion doesn't matter, political consequences don't matter. The emotional bond is everything. She lived on his estate in Rome for 18 months with their son, Caesarion. And Caesar never formally acknowledged the boy as his heir, because Roman law wouldn't allow it. Caesarion wasn't legitimate by Roman standards. Classic Cancer compartmentalization. Keep the wife Calpurnia for respectability, the mistress for passion, the son he can't legally claim, and somehow think you can manage all these emotional realities without everything exploding. But remember, he still craved that family, that legacy through children, the dynasty, the name living on. Back in Rome, he's implementing massive reforms. The Julian calendar, still the basis for our calendar today. Land redistribution, Senate expansion. And this is where you see both sides of Cancer. The nurturing side that genuinely wants to improve Rome, help the common people, make things better, but also the controlling side that needs to manage everything personally. He refuses the crown 3 times in public, theatrical humility, but accepts the title dictator perpetuo, dictator for life. This is the Cancer contradiction starting to tear him apart. They desperately want to be loved by the people, but they also need absolute control to feel secure. And they can't understand that those two things eventually conflict, that you can't be both the beloved protector and the all-powerful controller. At some point, people stop feeling protected and start feeling trapped. The Senate grows terrified because Caesar keeps accumulating power. And here's another layer to this Cancer trait. They genuinely don't see it as power grabbing. In their mind, they're just making sure everything's handled properly, making sure the people are protected, making sure Rome is secure. But to everyone else, it looks like tyranny. Cancers don't know when to stop. That cardinal energy just keeps pushing forward. More control equals more safety in their mind. The moon rules Cancer and the moon controls tides, push and pull, and Caesar's entire strategy is push, push, push until the tide turns on him. By 44 BC, he's at the peak. Most powerful person in Rome, everyone knows his name. His legacy is secured. His calendar will last millennia. His military victories are legendary. He's achieved everything a Cancer could want. But all this power, all this glory, and in a few weeks he'll be bleeding out on the Senate floor. Want to know why he never saw it coming? Now watch how this all falls apart. March 44th BC, multiple omens warning him, and here's what's haunting about his final days. There were 4 separate warnings. Most people only know about one. First, a soothsayer tells him to beware the Ides of March, the 15th. Specific date, clear warning. Second, Calpurnia has a nightmare where she's holding his body, blood everywhere. She begs him not to go to the Senate that day, his wife, terrified, pleading with him. Third, the priests examine animal sacrifices that morning, and the sources say they found terrible omens. Some accounts mention an animal with no heart. Whether that exact detail is accurate or not, the message was clear. Don't go. Fourth, multiple senators are acting strange, avoiding eye contact, tense. The energy is wrong. 4 warnings. 4 chances to listen to his intuition, to that Cancer emotional sensitivity that should be screaming danger. And Caesar dismisses all of it. Here's where it gets dark. This is the Cancer fatal flaw fully activated. They trust their own intuition so completely that they ignore external warnings. But wait, there's another layer to this Cancer trait. It's not just about intuition, it's about image. Showing fear, showing that he takes the threat seriously. That would mean admitting vulnerability. Admitting he's not in complete control. Admitting that people might actually want to harm him, that despite all his power, all his reforms, all his victories, he's not safe. He can't do it. The defensive pride won't let him. The shell is too hard. Retreat into vulnerability? Never. Better to walk into danger pretending you're invincible. Plus, there's Brutus. Marcus Junius Brutus. Let me tell you about this relationship because it's the key to everything. Caesar had pardoned him after Brutus fought against him in the Civil War, had given him positions of power, trusted him, elevated him. Some even whispered Brutus might be Caesar's biological son, because Caesar had a long affair with Brutus's mother Servilia. Whether that's true or not, Caesar treated Brutus like family. And here's the Cancer blind spot that nobody realizes until it's too late. Once they emotionally attach to someone, once they decide you're family, they project their own loyalty onto you. They can't believe you'd betray them. It doesn't compute. If Caesar loves Brutus like a son, then Brutus must love Caesar like a father, right? That's how it works in Cancer's mind. The emotional investment creates a binding contract. Both sides feel it equally, except they don't. And Cancer never sees that coming. So Caesar goes to the Senate, March 15th, 44 BC. He walks in, the soothsayer's warning in his head, Calpurnia's nightmare, the omens, all of it dismissed because showing fear would crack the shell, and underneath that shell is every insecurity he's ever had. The boy whose father died too young, the teenager who fled Rome, the man who needs control because without it he's vulnerable. The senators swarm him, daggers everywhere, 23 stab wounds. Picture this moment. Time stops. He's fighting back at first, trying to defend himself, but then he sees Brutus among them. Brutus, the one he trusted, the one he loved, the one he thought was his. And according to legend, he says it. Et tu, Brute? And you, Brutus? Though some ancient sources suggest he said nothing or spoke in Greek, the sentiment is the same. That's not just surprise. That's the deepest Cancer wound. Betrayal by someone you loved, someone you protected, someone you thought was yours, someone you invested your emotional security in. The wound that kills Caesar isn't in his body, it's seeing Brutus's face in that crowd. The emotional devastation. The Cancer nightmare realized everything they fear about vulnerability and trust and being wrong about someone, all of it happening at once. He stops fighting after that, pulls his toga over his face, because even in the end, Cancers can't stand being seen vulnerable. Better to hide, retreat into the shell, die with some dignity intact. He dies at the base of Pompey's statue. Remember Pompey, the ally from the First Triumvirate? The man Caesar destroyed in civil war? Now his statue watches Caesar's end. The poetry of it, the symmetry. He was 55 years old. His will leaves everything to his great-nephew Octavian. Adopts him posthumously. Because even in death, Cancer is thinking about legacy, about family, about who carries the name forward. Can't let the dynasty die, can't let the work be forgotten. His body is burned in the forum, the people riot. Because despite everything, despite the power grabbing and the dictatorship and the scandal with Cleopatra, they loved him. He'd connected with them emotionally in a way the other politicians couldn't. That Cancer gift for making people feel seen, valued, protected, it was real. even if the control that came with it became suffocating. And here's the thing about Caesar's legacy. Yes, he failed to keep the Republic. His need for control, his inability to share power, his refusal to stop accumulating authority, it made him a target. The senators who killed him thought they were saving Rome from tyranny. But Caesar succeeded in his real goal, the one that matters most to Cancer: immortality. We still talk about him 21 centuries later. July is named after him. Caesar became synonymous with emperor, Kaiser in German, Tsar in Russian. His book, The Gallic Wars, is still read in universities. His calendar is still the foundation of how we track time. His crossing of the Rubicon is still a metaphor for the point of no return. His name is literally woven into our language and culture, the ultimate Cancer achievement. He'll never be forgotten. So what does Caesar teach us about Cancer energy at its most extreme? That Cancer ambition is real and relentless. Don't let the emotional reputation fool you. Cancers are cardinal signs. They want to lead. They want power. They want to build empires, and their power comes through emotional intelligence, through making people love them, through creating loyalty. When that's working, they're unstoppable. Caesar's military genius, his political skill, his ability to inspire devotion, all of that is Cancer magic at its peak. But there's another layer. That ambition doesn't know when to stop. It's the moon controlling tides, always pushing, always pulling, never finding equilibrium. Caesar needed more and more control to feel secure, and every bit of power he gained made him less safe, not more. Because power without trust creates fear, and fear creates conspirators. The loyalty blind spot. This is what killed him. Caesar projected his own devotion onto others. If he loved you, he couldn't imagine you didn't love him back the same way. He missed the signs with Brutus, dismissed the warnings, trusted the wrong people. And the betrayal destroyed him in ways other signs might have survived. An Aries would have fought till the end. A Scorpio would have seen it coming. But Cancer? Once that emotional wound hits, once someone they loved proves the loyalty wasn't mutual, they're already dead inside. The defensive pride is dangerous. Caesar couldn't admit weakness, couldn't show fear, couldn't accept that he was vulnerable despite all his power, and that blindness, that refusal to see the threat because seeing it would mean admitting he's not invincible. That's what walked him into that Senate. 4 warnings. He ignored all of them, not because he didn't hear them, but because responding to them would crack the shell, would reveal the scared, insecure person underneath all that confidence. And finally, the legacy obsession actually works. Say what you want about Caesar's choices, his violence, his ambition, his control. The man achieved his goal. He controlled his narrative. He documented his victories. He built something that outlasted him by 2,000 years and counting. But at what cost? He never got to see his empire realized. Octavian did that. He never got to enjoy his power. He was eliminated right at his peak, at the moment of maximum success. He spent his whole life building security and died violently, surrounded by people he trusted in the one place he thought he was safe. The Cancer paradox. Desperate to protect themselves, desperate to be loved, desperate to control everything so nothing can hurt them. And in that desperation, creating the very conditions that bring them down. Caesar teaches us that emotional intelligence without emotional awareness is dangerous. That ambition without knowing when to stop is destructive. That loyalty is beautiful, but blind loyalty is fatal. That you can't armor your heart and still expect people to love you authentically. The tragedy is that he couldn't balance it. Couldn't find the line between ambition and satisfaction, between control and trust, between pride and vulnerability, between being the protector and being the tyrant. If Caesar had listened to those warnings, if he'd stayed home that day, would he have seen old age? Would he have ruled for decades? Would he have eventually learned to share power, to trust, to let go of control? Or was he always destined to push too far, ignore the signs, trust the wrong person? Maybe being a Cancer with that much power and ambition and emotional need was always going to end one way. 23 wounds, and the one that killed him wasn't physical. It was seeing Brutus's face in that crowd, the emotional wound, the cancer nightmare realized, the discovery that all his emotional investment, all his love, all his trust. It didn't create the bond he thought it did. That's what happens when a cardinal water sign refuses to accept their own limitations. When they lead with heart but armor it in pride. When they need love so badly they can't see when it's gone. Caesar conquered Gaul, crossed the Rubicon, defeated his enemies, changed the calendar, reformed Rome, transformed it from republic to empire, made himself immortal in history and language and culture. But he couldn't conquer the one thing cancers struggle with most: their own emotional vulnerability, their need to be right, to be strong, to be loved, to be in control, all at the same time. And in the end, that's what took him out. The greatest Cancer who ever lived, the most powerful, the most ambitious, the most successful at achieving legacy. And also, the perfect example of what happens when Cancer's shadow side goes unchecked. So yeah, next time you hear someone say Cancers are just soft and emotional, remember Caesar. Remember the man who conquered Rome, who laughed at pirates and crucified them, who said the die is cast and started a civil war, who built an empire, who dismissed every warning and walked into that Senate believing he was untouchable. Total Cancer energy.